Hello, my name is Zero and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. In today's video I'll be showing you my Githyanki Gish build, which will be a fighter wizard multi-class that will focus around dealing heavy melee damage while also being capable of casting enchantment and illusion spells as a bonus action to sort of imitate the Githyanki war magic class action that the Githyanki Gish NPCs get. So this may sound familiar to the Eldritch Knight war magic, which only works with cantrips, while Githyanki war magic works with any spell. So again, we're trying to imitate that with one of our rings. So for our character creation, we're of course going to go as a Githyanki, which gives us the access to Astral Knowledge, class action. We gain proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. So basically what this means, if you use this for example in a dialogue, you can get proficiency in all of the dialogue or charisma based skills. Then we gain also a cantrip, Githyanki Psionics Mage Hand, which essentially is just a mage hand that is invisible, so it's like you could argue an upgraded version, but it's nice to have it. And for racial features we have the standard 9 meters per turn speed, and we have the Martial Prodigy, which gives us proficiency in light medium armor and long, short and great swords. For our class we're going with a fighter. Our first 6 levels will be fighters, so we can gain our 2 first feats, and so we can gain ourselves extra attack. For our fighting style, we're going with Great Weapon Fighting. We'll be utilizing great weapons from the start, basically. This makes it so that when you roll a 1 or a 2 on a damage die for an attack with a two-handed weapon, that die is rerolled. So this just is going to increase your average damage you deal, well, on average. For our background, we're going with Guild Artisan. This is just my favorite background to choose. This gives you skills in Insight and Persuasion. And as always, if you want to pick a different background that fits your role-playing purposes, you can always do that. For our ability scores, we're going with something strange, as we'll primarily utilize strength for our weapon attacks. We have relatively low or very low strength. This is going to be counteracted with the use of Elixirs of Heal and Cloud Giant Strength. Reason being is in Act 1 with Auntie Ethel, you can easily stock up on a lot of these elixirs because she sells 3 per merchant reset. So I usually like to buy around 20 of those elixirs so that I have them last me throughout the entire game or until I start getting the Cloud Giant elixirs, which are an upgraded version. For dexterity we're going with 14. This gives us +2 to our armor class and gives us a little bit of an initiative. Constitution 16 to help us increase our health and help us save concentration saving throws more often. And of course we gain a +2 because we're a fighter, we gain that from proficiency. We are going to go with 17 intelligence because we are going to be an intelligence-based intelligence-based spellcaster. So the reason also is this is a nice multiclass because Eldritch Knights and Arcane Tricksters both synergize really well with wizards, because all of those 3 mentioned are intelligence-based spellcasters. We're also going for 10 wisdom. This is so that we have no negatives or positives for our wisdom saving throws. You can of course put this into charisma instead. This is up to you. My preference is to put it into wisdom. Now for the skills, I would probably just keep this as is. Athletics is nice because it helps you resist being shoved and helps you shove, and then intimidation is just another dialogue increase. Although because of Astral Knowledge you could maybe go something like survival or perception, but I will just keep it at intimidation. Alright, so at level 2 we unlock our action surge and we can move on, as that is it for level 2. At level 3 we unlock our racial spell Githyanki Psionics Jump. This is essentially just a hand slip with a different name, a great mobility spell that triples your jumping distance. For our subclass we're gonna go with Eldritch Knight, so we can start getting our spellcasting levels and some early spells and cantrips. So for our first 2 cantrips I would suggest picking up Friends. You get advantage on charisma checks against non-hostile creatures, and this spell can be cast while you're silent, but this isn't really important. The big important thing is if you are on honor mode, make sure that you leave the area before the duration of the spell runs out, or if you stop concentrating, because as it says here, on higher difficulty modes the target might accuse you of enchanting them. This means that this will be treated as a crime and you might have some issues with the guards. But if you leave the area and you stop concentrating and come back, you should be just fine. For a second cantrip, you're going to go with Firebolt. You can go with any of the other damage dealing cantrips, but Firebolt is nice for well, dealing damage and igniting surfaces. You can also take utility cantrips like Light or Minor Illusion, because we already do have access to Mage Hand. so I will go with Firebolt. For our spells here, first things first, we're going with Shield. Amazing level 1 spell that gives you 5 armor class as a reaction and makes you immune to magic missile damage. Always nice to have, especially if there is a big enemy hit coming on you and you get a reaction to use shield, you would of course use it. All around great spell to have. For the second spell, we're gonna go with magic missile. Reason being is this is a great spell to finish off low health enemies. I'm pretty sure everybody's been there. There's like an enemy left and he has like 1 or 2 HP and you just miss him 3 times in a row. This spell should prevent that from happening most of the time unless they have shield themselves. And then for the expanded spells, you could take Long Strider here if nobody else in your party has it, or maybe another Hand Leap. That's also a pretty good choice, but I would suggest going with something like Thunder Wave or Tasha's Hideous Laughter, though I will choose Thunder Wave because this is a great spell for pushing enemies away from you or off of cliffs. At level 4, we gain another spell here. Here I would suggest you choose either Protection from Evil or Good, or Burning Hands for damage. I will pick Protection from Evil and Good because this grants Aberrations, Celestials, Elementals, Fae, Fiends, and Undead disadvantage on attacks against you, which is very useful. We will not be replacing any spells. Then for the ability improvement, for our feat, we're going to go with Intelligence +2. This is so we boost our spellcasting even further. And also, I should mention that at this point in the game, or at level 5, when you're finishing off Act 1, you can deal with Anti-Ethel to get another +1 in any ability scores. I will just Intelligence, so you get Intelligence to 20. So for that +5 modifier. At level 5, we unlock our extra attack. We gain our Racial Misty Step spell. Once per long rest, we can use this as a free spell, which is great because Misty Step is amazing, a bonus action ability spell that allows you to attack right afterwards, and we have no spells to replace. At level 6, we will not be replacing any spells, but we do gain our second feat, and here you have a choice, all about your preference. Either you can go with Great Weapon Master, you deal 10 additional damage at a cost of 5 accuracy on the attack roll, or you can go with Savage Attacker, which increases your on average damage output, but of course it doesn't give you as much damage as Savage Attacker. Just in general, your weapon will deal more damage because it says here, when attacking with a melee attack, you roll your damage die twice and use the highest result. So both of these are good. I will just stick with the Savage Attacker here. Now at level 7, we are going to actually start our multi-class into Wizard. And for our Wizard cantrips, we're going to be taking Light, because this is very useful in Act 2, and at this point in the game we will be in Act 2. Then for the second one, you can choose Shocking Grasp. This is useful in Act 3. There is an area there that requires lightning damage to light up some torches for a secret area, so to say. That is as much as I will say about that. And then for the third cantrip, you could pick up something like Minor Illusion for hurting enemies, or maybe something like Bone Chill to prevent them from healing, or Ray of Frost to freeze surfaces like water and blood. So I will just take Ray of Frost here. Now for the Wizard spells, here you can just take Long Strider and Sleep. You can take Tasha's Hideous Laughter because we will need this. It will synergize really well with our Enchantment and Illusion spell focus. You can take Burning Hands, Chromatic Orb. You can even take something like Find Familiar. The rest won't really matter because we have kind of everything we need so far from the low level spells. And plus, at this point, when we pick up the level 7 first level Wizard, we are actually going to be a second level spellcaster. So once you are done with level up screen and you choose your Wizard spells, you can pick up Tasha's Hideous Laughter. You can pick up Misty Step, Hold Person, Blur, Mirror Image. All of these, except Misty Step, are enchantment or illusion spells. These two are sort of defensive tanking spell, because this one gives you 3 armor class, while this one makes enemies have disadvantage on attack rolls against you. Both really good pickups. Hold Person, of course, amazing. If an enemy fails the save, they hold still. And if you are close, 3 meters or closer to them, your attacks are always critical hits. And then Tasha's Hideous Laughter just gives you advantage because enemies are prone. Moving on to level 8, our Wizard level 2, we unlock our subclass. We will pick Evocation. Evocation is nice because of the sculpt spells, meaning that any evocation spell that we cast near or close to our allies, they will automatically save and they will not take damage. So for example, if we cast Thunder Wave close to our allies, they will not be damaged by it or pushed away by the force. So it is really good. For the spells here, just pick whatever, honestly, it doesn't really matter. Now we are still a second level spellcaster here, so you could take something like Sleep or Burning Hands, which we can swap out later, so I will just take Burning Hands for now. At spellcaster level 3, we are now, because of our Eldritch Knight levels, we should be a third level spellcaster. So for your wizard spells here, if you do not have Misty Step, Hold Person, or the Mirror Image and Blur, you could learn them here, though of course you are probably just gonna learn them from scrolls before this anyway, so I'm going to just take, let's say, Crown of Madness and Scorching Rays. Now for the prepared spells, what we can do here is we can take Fear. Fear is an amazing illusion spell that in a big cone in front of you causes enemies to drop their weapons and run away from you, which is very good. It can also trigger opportunity attacks. You can also take something like Grand Flight or Slow, and I will go with Slow because this is a nice third level spell that can target 6 creatures, which is quite handy. At level 10, we are still a third level spellcaster. We unlock one more additional wizard cantrip here. I will just take Minor Illusion. You can take also any of the other damage spells. Blade Ward isn't really worth it. You spend an action to gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, but yeah, there's better ways to gain damage resistance. For these spells, really doesn't matter, so I will just go with Magic Weapon and Cloud of Daggers. And at this point, we should be a 4th level... No, actually not. Sorry, I'm mistaken. No, we're still a 3rd level spellcaster. So here, you could just take, I don't know, Scorching Rays. If you manage to get somebody Hold Person and you're standing next to them, this will deal more damage than your weapon attacks, if I'm not mistaken. So I would just take that. And we unlock our 3rd and last feat, and here we're going to take Warcaster. Because now we're well off as spellcaster and we have a lot of concentration spells. We will need this to maintain our concentration effectively. At level 11, we are a 5th level wizard and we unlock our 4th level spell slots. So now here, you could pick up Haste and Counterspell if you want to use those. And so for the spells, we're going to remove Scorching Ray and Long Strider. We're going to take Confusion, and we can also use Phantasmal Killer. But let's look at the Confusion first. So confuse a group of enemies, causing them to attack at random, wander around aimlessly, and occasionally skip their turns. This targets only enemies and is very handy. And then you have Phantasmal Killer. Haunt a creature with its worst nightmares. It takes 4 to 40 psychic damage per turn. It cannot move at disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. You could also, instead of it, take Dimension Door or Fire Shield. You could also take Haste. You have quite a few choices here. I will just take Dimension Door because it is a nice mobility spell that you can use on your allies as well as yourself. It can transport basically 2 creatures, the caster and a target. At level 12, as a final level, we unlock Potent Cantrip. This is so that our cantrips still deal damage if the enemy succeeds a saving throw, but we don't have any cantrips that actually require a saving throw. And for the spells here, I mean, you can of course pick up a Fireball as always. You can take also Hypnotic Pattern, though with the Hypnotic Pattern you should be careful because this can target yourself and your allies. If you cast this on yourself and you fail the save, you will just instantly break concentration. So essentially it will do nothing, you will just waste your turn. So be careful with this one. And then for the last spell, you can pick up Hypnotic Pattern, Fire Shield, or Phantasmal Killer. I would probably take Fire Shield because this is a nice sort of spell that if an enemy hits you, you punish them by dealing 2d8 fire or cold damage back to them. You can also take something like Counterspell, Haste, and now this is it for the levels. So I will see you in the equipment section. Alright, so here we are in the equipment section. So I'll mention again that it's absolutely crucial that you stock up on these elixirs of Hill Giant Strength in the Druid's Grove with Auntie Ethel. Again, around 20 is the fine number. Depending on how often you long rest, you might need less or more. But usually the 20 is sort of the safe number. Of course, as you play through the game, you can buy more of these. And then eventually you will unlock the Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength that is just a straight up upgrade to the Hill Giant. Now, for our headgear, we're going with the Diadem of Arcane Synergy. When you inflict a condition, you gain Arcane Synergy for 2 turns, and Arcane Synergy makes it so your weapon attacks deal additional damage equal to your spellcasting modifier. So what this means is we will deal additional 6 damage with our weapon attacks, which is very good. For the cloaks, we're going with the Cloak of Protection, armor class +1 and saving throws +1. On the alternative, you can take the Cloak of the Weave if you want more space save DC and attack rolls. For the armor, we're going with the Psionic Ward armor. If the item detects that the wearer is a Gith, they have resistance to psychic damage, and whenever the wearer succeeds a saving throw against a spell, they regain 1d4 hit points. Now, this armor is not amazing per se, but I chose it as it thematically fits really well, so we are sticking with this. But on the alternative, you can take the Armor of Agility. This armor adds your full dexterity modifier to the armor class and doesn't give you a disadvantage on stealth checks. For the gloves, we're going with the Brain Drain gloves. When you deal psychic damage, you also inflict mental fatigue for 2 turns, and mental fatigue gives the affected entities a penalty of -1 wisdom, intelligence, and charisma saving throws. At 5 stacks or more, the target takes 1d4 psychic damage and is no longer mentally fatigued. Now, these gloves synergize really well with our headpiece because the gloves will trigger the activation of Arcane Synergy, giving us more damage. And the Brain Drain effect, the mental fatigue effect itself, synergizes really well with all of our spells, because pretty much all of our concentration spells that are illusion or enchantment, they are a wisdom saving throw spells. On the alternative, you can take the Gloves of Baneful Striking. Whenever you deal damage with a weapon attack, the target receives 1d4 penalty to its saving throw against your next spell. Now, I should mention that these gloves and the Brain Drain gloves, they do not require a saving throw. As long as you hit your target, they will get the effects of mental fatigue or the special Baneful Striking gloves effect. So it's a guaranteed activation of Arcane Synergy with these 2 gloves if you do not miss. For the boots, we're going with the Boots of Psionic Movement. Whenever a Githyanki casts Fly, their next melee weapon attack deals 1d4 psychic damage. You also gain Githborn Flying Boots, which lets you fly once per long rest for a bonus action. I also should mention that this effect, the Flying Strike, works with the Potions of Flying, though it does not work with the Fly from the Lilith powers, and it also works with the Fly spell. For the alternative, you can take the Vital Conduit Boots. Whenever the wearer casts a spell that requires concentration, they gain 8 temporary hit points. For our amulet, we're going with the Phase Semblance Amulet. You have advantage on Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma saving throws. This is so you're just sort of harder to crowd control with, particularly Wisdom saving throw spells. For the alternatives, you can wear the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation. When you deal Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, and Thunder damage with one of your cantrips, you add your spellcasting modifier to it. This is just so if you find yourself using your cantrips a lot. You can also use the Amulet of the Unworthy, which gives you resistance to slashing damage but makes you vulnerable to bludgeoning damage. This is a decent amulet because majority of the enemies in the game deal slashing or piercing damage. Very few deal bludgeoning damage, but those that do deal bludgeoning damage, you will feel it because you will notice that they are dealing really high damage to you, so you will have to pay attention to that. You can also take the Amulet of the Devout. You gain +2 to spell save DC, which is very useful for us because most of all spells do require a spell save DC and not spell attack rolls. For our rings, we're going with the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. After hitting a creature with a weapon attack, you can cast an illusion or enchantment spell as a bonus action. This is the ring that allows us for this build to have this sort of imitation of the Githyanki War Magic, because it allows us to cast illusion and enchantment spells for a bonus action. Then for a second ring, we're going with the Strange Conjuring Ring. While concentrating on a spell, the wearer's attacks deal additional 1d4 second damage. So since most time we will be concentrating on a spell, this will be a very handy ring to have. For the alternatives, you could take the Acoustic Band instead of the Strange Conjuring Ring. Acoustic Band just adds a flat 2 acid damage to your weapon attacks. For the weapon, we're going with the Soulbreaker Greatsword. This greatsword, when wielded by a Githyanki, deals additional 1d4 psychic damage, and you gain +2 to initiative rolls. And you gain a special weapon action, the Soulbreaker, which can stun enemies for 2 turns. For the alternatives, you can take the Githyanki Greatsword in the older game, and which has the same effect of 1d4 psychic damage, but does not have the special weapon attack. And of course, for the late game, you can take the Silver Sword of the Astral Planes, or Astral Plane. The wielder, if the weapon detects it's a Githyanki, deals 1d6 psychic damage. You also gain the Githyanki holding this weapon has advantage on Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma saving throws, and resistance to psychic damage and cannot be charmed. Now, if you're going to wield the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane, you do not need this armor and you do not need this amulet, because the sword does what they do. They're like, both of those are combined in this. But since I usually give this sword to Lae'zel or somebody else, I stick with these. But if you really want this sword, you can roll with the Armor of Agility and one of these other amulets. For our ranged weapon, we're going with the Hellrider Longbow. You gain +3 to initiative and advantage on perception ability checks. Also, when you use this weapon for attacking, you have a chance to inflict Fairy Fire once per turn, though we're mainly using this as a stat stick weapon for that +3 to initiative. And lastly, the Resonance Stone. All nearby creatures are steeped in bliss, and steeped in bliss, entity has advantage on physical checks and disadvantage on mental saving checks. Entity is also vulnerable to psychic damage. This is here just so it's going to boost our psychic damage that we're going to be dealing. It will also help us with enemies failing the mental saving throws, so wisdom saving throws. But you have to be very careful with this when you are fighting Mind Flayers, because they deal very heavy psychic damage, and also they have a lot of mental saving throws. So if you're fighting Illithid, I would suggest just send this to your camp. Alright, and that's it for the equipment. I will now see you in the battle showcase. Alright, so here we are at the Flaming Fist barracks for yet another battle showcase. So combat with this character will be rather straightforward. You can, before the combat starts, use your flying boots to cast fly on yourself, or you can even drink a flying potion like I did, and we could just fly into combat, with our goal being trying to hit somebody so that we get Arcane Synergy. I will use Luck of the Far Realms so to get it out of the way so that it doesn't show up anymore. And we are going to cast Fear, so let's take a look at their save rolls. So Gauntlet Thunder, she was probably the most likely to succeed because she is a cleric, but she still failed, so she got disadvantage, but she got a 12 with her proficiency and wisdom modifier. And then Fist Colts and Cross would be even less likely to succeed their saving throw because they do not have as high wisdom, and especially Fist Cross, who has mental fatigue. And mental fatigue actually per mental fatigue point adds a -1. So if he had 4 mental fatigue, he would have a -4. So now let's take a look at the damage with all of our psychic buffs and our arcane synergy. We're going to target Fist Colts here, so because he's fresh and he's not wounded. And let's take a look. So he took 18 psychic damage. He took 2 from our weapon. He took 4 from our boots, and he took 3 from our ring. So the psychic damage is very decent, especially because we are making them vulnerable from Steeped in Bliss. And then our slashing damage, we got an 8 from our sword, we got an 8 from our strength modifier because we have the potion of Cloud Giant strength going, or elixir of Cloud Giant strength, and he took a 6 from our spellcasting modifier ability. So essentially our minimum damage we can deal with a weapon attack is a 14 plus 16, so it's 16 damage minimum. And yeah, there you go. I hope you enjoyed. This is about it for the build. You can always just use action surge and finish smacking your targets. I hope you enjoyed. I would appreciate if you leave the like and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 content, and I will see you in the next one.